to get the most out of DeVonta Smith, you have to play him in the Z position. He can't be on the split end. He can't be on the line of scrimmage. He can't be where Patrick Peterson is going to knock him in the next week in a jam. That's not his game. So you got to get him off. You got to be the flanker. You got to get him off the line of scrimmage. Therefore, you're saying, guess what? Jalen Reagor can't do it either. So we're in the same position. You have a better player. DeVonta Smith is a better player than Jalen Reagor, no question about it. That's not my argument. But then you have Travis Fulgham outside. You have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside outside. You still have the same issues. You're a little bit better. But you also, Jody, you also said we just crapped the bed on our first-round pick in 2021. There's where the ego comes into it, and the Eagles don't want to do that. They don't want to do that.
Friday edition, episode number 15. We're damn close to having 3 weeks under our belts here on Birds 365. The Mac guys, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. We thank Andrew Brand for hopping on board. Want to try and stretch out the conversation on one thing Andrew touched on about staying true to your board. Howie Roseman with Andy Weidel and Nick Sirianni the other day said the collaborative effort in putting together the board this year for him has been great, and that they had certain things already in place. They had to, because they made the big trade going from 6 down to 12. Shoot, it was almost a month ago now, John. So this board is ever shaping and always evolving, but they had to feel strongly enough about their evaluation of guys to be able to make that trade a while ago. Howie made it sound like they're good with their board, and they love their board, and there is great collaboration ongoing, and their board is going to serve them well. Well, apparently that wasn't the case just 1 year ago, when even though the board said Jefferson should have been their selection, they decided to go with Reagor. It's been well reported, well documented. They went away from their board a little bit. And then I read this story today. It's not enough that Eagle fans have to suffer with the fact that they got away from their board and took a lesser wide receiver, at least for his first year production in the league. But Jefferson comes out and says that he's so happy that he was selected by Minnesota, that he thought he was going to Philadelphia, and the heck with them since they didn't draft him. He'll enjoy beating the Eagles whenever he gets the chance going forward. Nothing like getting salt rubbed in your already open wounds. They didn't take the kid, and he goes out and has a phenomenal year. And now, by the way, he's rubbing it into the Eagle wounds that you had the chance, you didn't take me. I got 2 words for you, and they're not happy birthday.
Yeah, I mean, that was a GQ interview, and I read the whole interview. I don't think he was rubbing salt in the wounds. I think it's more he keeps getting asked the question. And obviously, when you're in a certain situation, what are you going to say? If you're a smart football player, you're going to say, I'm thrilled to be here. I want to be here. And if you get passed over by somebody, you're going to say, maybe there's a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, but it's not like a divisional team where you see them 2 times a year anyway. So that's part of it. I think it's a little bit overblown. If people would stop asking him the question, he would probably stop answering it. Same thing with Jalen Reagor here. Jalen is upset about that because people keep asking him that question about, Justin Jefferson performed so well and you didn't, and blah, blah, blah. And he gets a little bit upset. So I think that part of it's a little bit natural. I think the bigger issue that Andrew brought up is that whole point in a typical pandemic, non-pandemic year. You got scouts on the road for 7 months. They do all this work. You build this board. And on draft night, Jeffrey Lurie comes in and says, you know what? We probably should go in this direction. That even if I think the most important part Andrew Brandt brought up was even if the pick is correct, it's like a deflating of the balloon in the organization, because you guys did all this work and you're being ignored. So I think that's the biggest problem. And to talk about, this is our 15th show, Jody, we're already starting to preview 16 because Jeff McLean's going to be on Monday with us, and he's He's the one who first reported this disconnect from the scouting staff and Jeffrey Lurie swooping in, Howie Roseman, all these different cooks in the kitchens Andrew was talking about. That's the problem. The problem isn't the focus on Justin Jefferson versus Jalen Reagor. The problem is, how did you get there? And Jalen Reagor could turn out to be a 5-time Pro Bowl player, turn into a great player. The process still stunk.
Understood. And I think you make an excellent point about maybe this is Jefferson just being asked the question over and over and over again. And that's why it seems like he's taking shots. And yeah, to use my phrase, and I use it and I meant it, rubbing salt in eagle wounds, because it is such a never-ending topic for people to ask about. I get that. Jalen Reagor, if he's tired of answering that question, I've got a suggestion for Jalen Reagor. Be better.
Yeah,
put up massive numbers this year. Come in and show that you deserve to be the 21st pick. Was that the number 21? 21. Yeah. You deserve to be the 21st pick in the draft by putting up big numbers in this Eagle offense.
With you. I agree with you. If you play
use it as motivation, Jalen, rather than getting put off or ticked off. Don't go down the Carson Wentz road of let it get inside your head. No, let it be in your head, to the forefront of your head. A little anger built up that people are questioning.
And I think there is, by the way. I think there is a little anger built up. I think it was more from Reagor's standpoint. I don't think it was a Wentz level type thing or not. Okay. I don't want to say. I think it was more of a frustration thing because he was hurt and he was trying to play through injuries and there was some bad luck. And he was feeling a little bit frustrated. And we'll see if he can turn his career around. But you know what? We got a few minutes, and I'm gonna get you upset for next week because I started.
You can try, buddy. I don't think you're going to be able to, but go ahead and give it your best shot.
Well, it's going to be DeVonta Smith related.
Okay,
so
please
I started thinking about what Nick Sirianni said in one of his, in between the gestures and the rock paper scissors. He was talking about the receiver position, and he was talking about the X receiver position. And I'm starting to think, people look at draft picks in a vacuum, and they say, to use DeVonta Smith as an example, that's a good player. No question about it. That's a good player. Some people have concerns over his weight. But my point is, you've got to start looking at the fit. You got to start looking at the scheme. So what this team wants to do, they want to play Jalen Reagor at the Z position. They need a slot receiver. They hope that turns into Quez Watkins. And they need an X receiver. That's what they need. When Alshon Jeffrey was here and being very successful, they have Travis Fulgham, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. They got to get better. So if you draft DeVonta Smith, my point, at number 12, you're going to put out DeVonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, and Quez Watkins in 11 personnel. I got to tell you, the physical cornerbacks in this league are going to be licking their chops against that group. That is an awful, awful scheme fit. I'm just throwing it out there.
And you're perfectly rightful to do so. Here's how I would look at it if I were Nick Sirianni. If Nick asked me, I just heard what McMullen said, and it makes some sense that it's not the perfect grouping of wide receivers. I'd say, Coach, here's how I would look at it. Who's the best wide receiver of those three? Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, DeVonta Smith. Who's the most talented guy? Who do you project as to be able to be the best receiver and put up the biggest numbers over the course of X amount of years going forward? The answer for me is DeVonta Smith. So is the problem DeVonta Smith or Reagor or Watkins or a Hightower or anybody else you want to put in the mix? Do you not take the best player available because,
by the way,
we've got other players in other positions that to this point have done nothing in the league? I'm going to let that affect the way I look at the number 12 pick in the draft? Not for me.
Yes, you are, because I'm saying, Jody, you're in the vacuum. I agree with you. DeVonta Smith is the best player. To get the most out of DeVonta Smith, you have to play him in the Z position. He can't be on the split end. He can't be on the line of scrimmage. He can't be where Patrick Peterson is going to knock him in the next week in a jam. That's not his game. So you got to get him off. You got to be the flanker. You got to get him off the line of scrimmage. Therefore, you're saying, guess what? Jalen Reagor can't do it either. So we're in the same position. You have a better player. DeVonta Smith is a better player than Jalen Reagor. No question about it. That's not my argument. But then you have Travis Fulgham outside. You have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside outside. You still have the same issues. You're a little bit better. But you also, Jody, you also said, we just crapped the bed on our first-round pick in 2021. There's where the ego comes into it. And the Eagles don't want to do that. They don't want to do that.
I understand Howie Roseman doesn't want to admit that their 2021 pick, because he keeps hearing about it every where you turn, including Birds 365, about Jefferson being a far superior player, and all the reporting about it was off the board as a selection. Yeah, they are rooting for, going to do what they have to make sure that Reagor gets a chance to be an improved sophomore player rather than the freshman fail that he was for the most part. Oh, I understand that. But Nick Sirianni is a receivers-driven head coach. If there truly is collaboration in this upcoming draft, and he understands the receiver position, gets so excited he knocks the table almost over in the press gathering the other day. He sees that talented a wide receiver whose number he can call. He's going to tell Howie, I know we've got a bunch of names on a piece of paper here, and however they were garnered by the Philadelphia Eagles over the last several years. I need the best player available. And the best player available is DeVonta Smith. I can make this kid into a superstar. And put his name in. Put his name in now. Get on the phone with whoever's relaying the card to Roger Goodell. Give me DeVonta Smith. That's what I'm praying, hoping, and believing Nick Sirianni has on draft night.
And I think the Eagles, maybe if Nick Sirianni had the power to do that, maybe he would do that. But let's be honest, he doesn't have the power to do that. I think the Eagles would more direction. You want to go outside, so the Eagles will say to themselves, okay, let's get J.C. Horn at corner. Let's solve that position. Then at 37, or maybe you got to go up a little bit, let's go get Terrace Marshall from LSU, who can play the X position, which is what they need. I think that would be more of their thinking if they wanted to go outside the numbers and go away from their usual behavior. I don't think they want the redundancy of Jalen Reagor, DeVonta Smith, Quez Watkins, all these similar type players. And you say to Jalen Hurts, who's a young quarterback, okay, it's 3rd and 7. I need a back shoulder. I need a contested catch that Alshon Jeffrey was so good at when he was healthy. Who the hell is going to give that to me? Who's going to give it to me? You don't have it on the roster unless Travis Fulgham.
I was going to say, Fulgham made some of those plays.
Or J.J. I'll even throw J.J. Then you got to get those guys up to speed.
I don't have much faith in JJ, but Fulgham I do. And while you stated very wisely, my friend, about the redundancy of the wide receivers, here's the one thing I will note, and if I have to carry the water myself, I will do so. I'm not big a fan of DeVonta Smith. Even though chances are it's going to be, as you say, a J.C. Horn who could be the pick, even if the DeVonta Smith's on the board. Even though it might be a Vera Tucker who is the pick, even though a DeVonta Smith is on the board. And it isn't the direct comparison that Reagor and Jefferson has been. Oh, I will be bringing it up. Others will be bringing it up. If DeVonta Smith goes out and catches 1,000+ yards in year one, and Vera Tucker is backing up the Eagle offensive line, or J.C. Horn is a kind of wet behind the ears rookie, makes some plays, but makes some big mistakes. Oh, it'll be continued drummed in by Eagle fans, Eagle media members like myself. And the Eagles had a chance to get DeVonta Smith. The whole reproduction of players we already had thing will go right by the board. The only thing that will matter is the comparison of the level of production of player A and player B. Player A being DeVonta Smith, player B being whoever the Eagles take at 12 other than DeVonta Smith. And guess what? Howie Roseman et al. Will be roasted again in this town if they don't take DeVonta Smith.
Well, I think he's going to get roasted on draft night because people want a skill position player. People always want a skill position player. You're talking about a Heisman Trophy winner that succeeded at the highest level, has all these numbers. Everybody knows who he is. So if you end up taking a player, an offensive lineman, the fans are, Xander's telling me the fans are saying, never mention the name Kwity Paye again. If they take a player like that, they're gonna bring out the pitchforks. They're gonna bring out the torches, Jody. But again, 6 years from now, we might have a Brandon Graham narrative. If that player turns into the 3-time Pro Bowler, early, it's going to be ugly either way. Either they take a skill position player or we riot is essentially where I think this fan base is. However, Jody, this is significant. We can talk about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the 2019 draft. Whatever you believe him. 2020, Jalen Reagor plus 2 other picks. You have needs all over the stinking board. You have needs everywhere on this team. You can't keep doubling down on wide receiver. You can't do it. You got to build up the rest of the team as well.
And let me once again state my position so it is not misunderstood. So the streaming commentators, so my callers on WIP, don't get it wrong.
They'll get it wrong.
Well, no, not if I continue to explain myself. There are 2 players that I think fall into this category. DeVonta Smith and Justin Fields. Skill position players who should not be available at number 12. Both should be well off the board before they ever get to the Eagles. If the Eagles have the opportunity to take either of those 2 guys, I think it's a must because their star potential is through the roof. If neither of those guys are available, if it is Jalen Waddle and they go cornerback instead, you're not going to hear me complain. You're not going to hear me say, oh, my God, how did they not take Jalen Waddle? Well, I may say it 3 years down the road if Waddle turns into a superstar. 2020 hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I'm not going to say it on draft the day after, the Friday thereafter. Only those 2 players. And that's why, because they're superstar potential talent, I'm saying I don't care what I did in the draft the year before. I don't care about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who might not even make this team. We just picked him in the 2nd round 2 years ago. I don't care. I have to get the best available talent. And those 2 guys, in my evaluation, my rankings, are so far and ahead of the others and would be such great value at 12, you can't pass on it. If all those guys are off the board and they go Kwity Paye, I'll jump on the John McMullen bandwagon and go, yes, Kwity Paye could be the next Brandon Graham.
Well, I'm with you on Justin Fields. I'm with you 100% on any wide receiver. We'll use Justin Jefferson as the best example because he had a historic season for a rookie wide receiver. He broke Randy Moss's records in Minnesota as a rookie wide receiver. How many games the Vikings win?
Not many more than
7-9 team. Yeah. Didn't even, and that was a playoff team going backwards. Wide receivers do not have the impact on the game as quarterbacks. So, hey, I could see DeVonta Smith coming in here. I could see him being the best wide receiver on this team by far, because that's a very low bar to surpass, number 1. And number 2, I think he's a really good player. Right. I could also see him getting 1,200 yards. And I could also see the Eagles winning 6 games with those 1,200 yards. Just doesn't have that much impact on the game.
On the other side of the scale, though, the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl, both very talented wide receiver cores. Mike Evans and all the...
Well, everybody is a talented wide receiver core except the Eagles.
That's why you got to get DeVonta Smith. Thank you very much. On that note, we can wrap up another edition of Birds 365. Mac and Mac guys will be back with you again next week. As John told you, Jeff McClain of the Inquirer will be on with us. We'll do a lot of draft prep leading up to the big day on Thursday when the Eagles have the 12th pick. Hopefully you come back with us. Hey, share the YouTube page with all your friends. We're growing Birds 365 each and every single day. We need your help on that. Thank you for 3 solid weeks so far. We're looking forward to the 4th next week. J-Mac, have yourself a great weekend. Everybody out there in Eagle Land, have a great Birds 365 weekend as well.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.